In this video, I'm going to go through a complete beginner's guide to getting your first ever Google Ads campaign up and running, from creating your account all the way through to troubleshooting and making sure that your ad is actually live. I'm also going to touch on several things that we see first-time Google Adders always get wrong, which would hopefully save you a lot of time, a lot of money, and a whole lot of headaches. So let's jump straight into it. Now, the first thing you want to do is go over to Google, type in Google Ads, and click on the first listing, which again is a Google ad. Surprising that. I wonder if they have to pay for their own Google Ads. Anyway, once you've done that, you go through to a landing page, which looks exactly like this, and you click on Start Now. This will then take you through to creating your first Google Ads account. Now, just forewarning, this may take you through, if you haven't created an account before, to an express campaign. Ultimately, express campaigns are Google's way of trying to give you a helping hand to set up your first campaign. It's stripped back of all functionality, which is going to be super helpful for you in the long term. And it's a really easy way for small business owners and people that haven't really got too much experience with Google Ads to go and burn a whole lot of money by giving all the trust into Google to go and run that campaign. So if you get a page that looks like this when you first create a Google Ads account and it has Express in the URL, then make sure you go to the bottom and type on view more goal types, which will take you through to this view that we have here. Okay, so obviously we now just click on create your first campaign, and that will take you through to this view here. So let's just put in test campaign, let's do test one, and then we'll just put in one of our software which we could run Google Ads to, for example, and then we click on next. As you can see here, using your email, it's gone through to see the accounts which already could be associated, and you can go through here and link, for example, your Google business profile here, and also more channels down here which you can go and link. I'm not going to link them here because I'm going to show you in the actual campaign manager where you can go through and link them if you've already got a campaign up and running. So I'm not going to go through too much of this today. So I'm just going to skip through this. Again, you can create your first campaign here, but we're just going to skip through it so we can actually go into the real dashboard to actually show you how you can start creating campaigns in there. And again, skip and leave campaign creation. What you want to do here now is go through and click on the billing settings. So you go set up here. So for example, for us, it'll be United Kingdom, time zone, GMT, and the British pound. You can then put your then it will ask you if you want personalized guidance from a Google Ads expert. You want to click no. Ultimately, this is again going to be their sales reps equivalent to try and get you to spend more money through optimization score and all sort of things, which we'll get onto in a little bit of time. But ultimately, they're not going to be the best things for your campaign necessarily, but always going to be the ones which, incentivize you to increase your budget. So let's go through here and click on submit. Oh, and also on this, if you're doing it for a client, then you're going to get calls every single day for each one of the campaigns until you physically Google how you can block their numbers. Click on no and submit, and then you can go now into explore your account. Now, this is very important. Again, if you're setting this up for somebody else, you don't necessarily want to enter your billing information or get them to send their card details to you, because then that means it's going to save their card details as a payment profile on your account, and you don't want that responsibility, and it's not really best practice. So what you can do is, if you're setting up for someone else, go over to admin, go on to access and security, and then go on here and click on new, and then click on users, and then put the user that you're trying to add actually owns the account or should own the account, their email address in here, and put expires never and create them as admin. Once that person's accepted the request and has created them as admin, then you can add yourself as a manager. So, in the future, you can remove yourself from the account and they still have access to all of the data, which again is best practice in this scenario. Last thing you want to do is for them not to have access in the future. Once the person's gone in and accepted the fact they're admin, they can go into billing setup, and then they can set up their payment profile down here. Then you can start running ads using their card automatically. Ultimately, what we suggest is creating a real-time budget tracker and budget pacer. I've actually created a full video, which I'll link up here, to this budget pacer and how you can build it using different APIs, which allows you to actually see every day whether you're underspending or overspending, and keeping a tight look on that budget to make sure that you're not going to spend too much of your client's money or your own money, or the fact that you're not actually megally underspending and need to make some modifications to your campaign. So I'll link that up above, which hopefully should be really helpful for you. So you've got the payment setting up and running. And now what we want to do is go and click on campaigns and click on new campaign. So in this case, we're going to be creating a lead generation campaign because most of the companies we work with are B2B lead generation. If you've got an e-commerce store, for example, you can do sales, but these are the two primary ones, leads and sales, that I would recommend for campaign setup. You can experiment with other ones if you're doing an app promotion, for example, or you're looking to drive more local store promotion. Some people say, you should go and create a campaign without guidance, and it gives you a whole host of flexibility that you get on campaign setup that you don't get with leads and sales. But ultimately, when it comes down to using data behind the scenes in order to optimize accounts further down the line, we recommend going with leads. Then go on to search. The other one here we primarily use would be the likes of video. We don't use in B2B or lead generally much Performance Max and display. Primarily the search and video are the two that we use. And then what we'll do here is website visits. And here, what you're going to do is we're going to set up actual conversions in a minute. I'm going to show you how you can import conversions from your GA4 and how you can set that up in a sec. So at this moment in time, I wouldn't worry too much about conversions, but let's just for this moment click on this option here. And for a campaign name, what we try and do is type in the person initially who's running the campaign for quick and easy access. So let's just put BB here. We can then say, for example, we're doing a campaign for CRM software. We can name it, and then we'd say, the location we're doing it in, UK, and then, for example, the type of keyword that we're going to be bidding on. There's going to be different ways in which people recommend doing this, but say, for example, a lot of our clients have really high cost per click keywords. We want to say this campaign here is going to be exact match keywords. If it was going to be a lower CPC, we may mix exact and phrase and maybe potentially broad, but I'll get on to how this breaks down in a minute. And we'll keep enhanced conversions turned on. Now, I'm not going to go too much into that today, but ultimately enhanced conversion really gives Google Ads script a lot more data to go away and say, we actually have pieced together in the back end using server-side tracking how this person came through. They've tracked them across the web. They've got data from historically where they've been signed in, their email address, and we can see actually that even though cookies may not be working perfectly, we've identified that that person did actually come through a Google ad. They've now converted, and we can actually see that from their back end data. So leave that as turn on enhanced conversions, go agree and continue. Okay, so we should now get onto this stage here. First and foremost, we're looking at bidding. So if you have no data historically in your account, which I'm guessing you don't, we want to make sure that we change this from conversions to clicks. And then we'll set a maximum cost per click limit. Now to do this, we want to get indicative data of how much we should be spending. So what you can do is go over to the keyword planner, and to get onto keyword planner you can go back to the home page, click on tools, click on a keyword planner here. You can then click on discover new keywords, for example, and let's just type in CRM software and click on see results. Again, I'm not going to go too much into keyword research today. Keyword research is a pivotal part of actually creating a Google Ads strategy, and it's all around framing intent and making sure that you're only including keywords from research and competitor benchmarking, which you believe will have intent, and there's really good ways of testing this. If you guys want more tips around that, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we go through all this in weekly detail. But down here you can see, for example, CRM system, people are bidding between £3.48 to be at the bottom of page one up to an expensive £21. So what you can do in here is say initially I'm going to say a maximum of £10 cost per click, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in the first 24 hours and in the first week pretty much every day to make sure to see how much it's being served, to see if we have to bid a little bit more to actually get it shown consistently, or actually if we're getting away with a bit of daylight robbery to say that we're actually getting a relatively good top impression share actually underspending, which we've seen quite a lot in high CPC accounts as long as you sort of remain on top of it. So click on next, and this next bit is super important. You want to unclick search network and display network. Display network, again, we don't ever really run through the Google display network. There's been too much click fraud that we found on there. We actually run through our own DSP, which if you want more information, feel free to go to Session Media and fill out a form. But at this point in time, we use, and we don't use search network either, because ultimately search network is partners for Google. So you can appear in search engines and certain within sites which are partnered with Google, and you can appear within there as well. And you haven't really got any control. Google doesn't show you where you're appearing, and ultimately you can spend money without actually seeing where the data is, and you're unable to optimize it. So therefore we should just take it out and just bid on Google itself. So remove search network and display campaigns. You can set your location here. So for example, if we're just doing United Kingdom, for example, if you only want people in or regularly in your target locations, click here. But if you want people sort of abroad who are looking for potential UK services, you can click the above one. So it really depends how you want to frame that. Languages, again, you can change it here. From audience segments, there's two different types of audience segments. Ones you actually want to target and ones you just want to observe. Now, if you're creating your first campaign, we typically would just say you just want to observe these target audience markets. So depending on, the campaigns, what you're running, if it's for, B2B software, if it's for a holiday, or if it's any other sort of lead gen, chiropractor, for example, you can go and browse and look at the relevant audiences in which you could actually look and observe. Now, once you've actually chosen these audiences, the great thing about the new insight within Google Ads is you can see campaigns that are running across the board, and they'll actually give you the best performing audiences, from mid-market segments to affinity audiences to detailed demographic audiences, to actually give you those. But again, in this early stage, it's worth going through and say, let's look at who they are, detailed demographics, employment, look at company size. So let's look at the different size of company the person works for. Let's potentially go look at the different industries. People may be looking for CRM software, to observe those. We can go back and say in market segments. So they're in market potentially to buy. They've been searching around. Let's go business services. And let's look in here. Maybe people are marketing and advertising. And what it will do is it will break this down and show you the data behind the impressions, clicks, and eventually conversions behind the scenes, and monitoring which ones are more likely to convert. You can then go and create those optimizations. And actually, when you go and change your bidding model, which we'll talk about in a minute, you can then use that data to be able to actually expedite your success within these campaigns. So observational here, keep broad match turned off, and then ad rotations. I would keep this, do not optimize, rotate indefinitely. Google sometimes prematurely jumps into optimizing one ad over another. Typically, we just say optimize them indefinitely. We can then go and look in our optimization process to see which ads and ad groups are performing best. And then if we go on to more details, you can say here, don't set an end date unless you want an end date to start, which would be mainly events, for example. And then ad schedule. If you find that people actually submit forms on the weekend, but your CRM data or your lead data never actually converts, maybe just turn it off and create day parting schedules, which means you haven't got to bid all the time. You're only bidding in the times in which people have proven to convert, especially if you've got limited budget. And then finally, I'm not going to go too much into campaign URL options at the moment. By default, this tracking will be turned on and create the UTMs and the GSLID that will pull through. But from a tracking template side, from a campaign level, you can get quite fancy if you have specific ways you want to track and track it through GA4, for example. And if you want to have dynamic variables changing on the page. But I'm not going to get too much into that today. And click on next. Next, obviously, you want to go through and look at creating your keywords. You've got the bidding sorted and the campaign set sorted. What queries do you want your ads to appear when a prospect goes and types that into Google? So, for example, let's use a CRM software example, and let's just create 3 exact CRM software terms. There's 3 types of match types you want to go after. First one is broad match, and that's when you have 0 parentheses, so there'll be nothing there. Ultimately, it's the default one that Google tries to get people to go with who are new to Google campaigns. The next one is going to be phrase match, which has these inverted commas, and then you have exact match. Now, the difference between all of these is changing continuously, and for the last year, it's been very different to the 10 years previously, for example. And they used to be broad match modified, but I won't get into that. So broad match, if you did CRM software, will literally bring up anything that's even closely associated and related to CRM software. We've even seen competitors' phone numbers being typed into search bars and triggering this as an actual search term for this seed keyword. So we try and stay away from broad match in high CPC B2B niches. If you're going from really low CPC and it's actually quite clear intent and you're using 4 or 5 keywords, which allows Google to gain context even more, then that's a different scenario. So again, it's case by case, which is going to be sort of down to you. Phrase match used to be just when there was words at the end or before the parentheses. So it would be like best CRM software 2024, for example, whereas now phrase match actually means there can be words in the middle of it. It can actually put words wherever it wants. It's kind of broad match modified in the day, and it can kind of change it quite drastically if it deems the context to be the same. And now we have CRM software exact match. That used to be just if someone typed in CRM software, only then would the search query then trigger the ad. Now there's going to be close variants, and close variants could be like CRM software, CRM systems, a CRM software XYZ. So it can actually go quite broad. So make sure you keep an eye on what's actually going through here, because it's not going to be as easy as just being like, this is the exact query it's going to turn up for. Again, in campaigns in industries where there's quite a lot of context and quite a lot of data, you could probably use all 3 match types to give it a lot of context. But again, when we're using B2B high CPCs, we try and use exact match and make sure we can get the, especially in the early days, a pretty high impression share to make sure that we're appearing 80% plus of the time for the high converting queries. And then we move into different campaigns to manage the budget at a campaign level and go on to phrase match. And broad match is rarely used for us. But again, there are certain use cases and optimizations and testing that we do try it with. Next, you want to go into final URL. So for example, you can obviously put your URL in here and then the suffix that people see. We can put this, CRM software. Don't know why I capitalized that. And then headers and headlines. So I'm not going to get too much into headline. I've actually created a whole video on how you can get beneath the skin and create a really great headline using sentiment analysis, but I'm not going to go too much into that in this video. The main thing I want to say is make sure that the headline, the first headline, is consistent with what someone's typing in. So if someone's typing in CRM software, make sure the first headline isn't, free trial, because it doesn't give it the consistency and the context that someone needs. So it'll be like CRM software. Again, we can get more creative. I go into it in the video above. And then what I recommend doing is just pinning this, so only showing position 1, because the last thing you want to do is, get 30-day trial, for example. Again, not a great call to action, but you don't want that, for example, being shown first. But now this is going to be pinned. You can also do dynamic keyword insertion where you say the exact query, as long as it's within the character limit, will pull through directly the query on the search term they're typing in. Down here, you can add all these different variations of headline down here, as well as a description where you get 90. Once you've actually confirmed your account, you can add logos. For example, you can see here, you can add your logo to the search results these days. You can add different site links. Again, like for example, these are site links here, which take you deeper and give more relevant insight. You can add call out extensions. Again, in that video with the Google ads, I go into the different areas and where your focus should be and how you should look to approach these. So we want to click next. And here we can see recommended budget, or you can set a custom budget. So for example, it's always hard, but I kind of say for most places, if you can, there's no right answer to this, but always try and see if you can get around, at least 10 clicks a day on the target queries you're going after. This way here, we'll say if you've got a 5% conversion rate, then you should be seeing conversions every sort of few days. You don't want to wait too long with a really low, get 1 or 2 clicks a day and then waiting sort of months to actually see any repeatable data. So make sure you probably get at least 10 clicks per day for these campaigns. But again, if you've got more, even better, you can get to the data even faster. But it depends where you are, if you're looking for a proof of concept or you have a approved budget and everything else. So let's say, for example, we're spending £10 CPC. Let's say we want to get £100 per day. So next, and what we can see here is it gives a campaign overview when it loads, but in the background you can see campaign name, the type search, objective leads, submit forms. You want to go into maximize clicks initially. Once we get enough data, we'll then go on to target cost per acquisition or maximize conversions. Networks, just a Google search network. Audiences, we're looking and just observing. And then the keywords and the budget down here. So once we've done that, you can click go live. Obviously, we haven't got everything filled out properly. We'd go through here and make sure that was not red, which means it's been done properly and approved. So if we go off here, let's just click discard this account. A few things you want to look at is first, like I mentioned, the conversions. So if you go into goals and click on conversions and click on summary, what you can see here is the different conversions. And if you're doing a lead campaign, it'll automatically create a lead form submit, which obviously isn't set up. There's a few different ways you can do this, but a really good beginner way of doing this and getting it done quickly is making sure that you can import it from your GA4. So if you go into your GA4 account, if you haven't got one set up, we've got a video around how you can create a GA4 account and also how you can go and create these goals and conversions and events within your GA4 account, which is going to be slightly different to the previous Universal Analytics. You can go through here, you can see all your events in the back end, and then what you can do is go into Google Admin, linked accounts. You want to then go into your GA4 and Firebase, go in details and link that account. You can also do it the same way through GA4 and link your Google Ads account through there. Either or is fine. You can then go back into goals, go into summary and click on new conversion action, click on import and click on a GA4 analytics property. And then within that, if you click on web, it will then go continue and it will show you a list of all the connected conversions, which you can pull through. Within the conversions, you can also set primary goals and secondary goals. So for example, if you want to set this as a primary action, this is the one that Google is going to help us optimize for when we start using smart bidding. But then also you can create secondary goals, which are going to be observe only. So you can have like, how many people actually dwell on, a certain page, or how many people actually, submit or actually click on a certain action. We can kind of see these back end goals. Or if you're testing GA4 versus actual Google Ads script, you can actually see how the different conversions and timelines work. The GA4 scripts are going to be slightly more data rich with what's happening behind the scenes, but you can also include those within your GA4 tracking as well. So that's how you set up conversions. When you get up and running, you can then go in to look at Salesforce, and there's going to be other CRMs brought in soon, which will bring through something called GSLID data, which ultimately is unique click identifier, which you can read back from your CRM system with associated deal value, pipeline value. Is it a qualified lead? You can re-upload that from your CRM and associate that with your keywords, ads, and everything else to actually give you numerical values behind those lead numbers, not just ones and zeros. And once you've got that, that's when you can really start using the smart bidding to really get ahead of the curve and start letting Google go behind the scenes and work out user profiles and which ones would be best to serve your ads in order to get, and optimize that GSLID value which you've re-uploaded, because it gives it a really good persona of the type of person who's actually coming in. Finally, like I mentioned, to make sure your ad is live, you want to go on to troubleshooting and then go on to ad diagnostics and preview, or add preview and diagnostics. Here you can say I want to look on mobile device, I want to look in Guildford, and I want to type in CRM software, and it will say at the moment obviously your ad is not showing. If your ad is showing, then it will say your ad is showing, which is great because then it's up and running and you can start waiting for the data to come through. From your first time you create an account, it can take up to about 3 days to get live, but it's normally live within a few hours as long as it gets through the sign-off process quickly. Now, I hope that half an hour run through of setting up a Google Ads account was helpful for you. Any questions, please whack them in the comments below. But it's definitely worthwhile knowing that creating, unfortunately, a Google Ads account is probably one of the easiest parts of the actual process. The really hard parts come in with looking at intent of the queries and doing that competitive benchmarking and research. Then actually creating ad copy, which is emotive, actually creates and uncovers the pain points and really cuts through the noise against the competitors, which normally you find aren't actually that great ad copy. And then actually looking at your landing page experience, can you get that conversion rate up? Half of it's all around managing the account, half of it's actually around landing page experience. And then the big ones are the account structure and the ongoing optimization. So how can you use audience insight data? How can you optimize the variables? How can you actually make the change between manual bidding to automated bidding? All of these things we go through on the YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe and follow along. Any questions, anything you'd like us to make videos around, please just let us know in the comments. And hopefully you have a great day and speak to you very, very soon.